Hello, this video is for those of you that missed our class for Poultry 101. And today you are going to learn a little bit about raising your home flock. So the first thing that I want to talk to you guys about when you're participating in the chick chain, you're participating in the 4-H poultry project. A project area is something that you're interested in 4-H, something that you want to learn more about. So welcome to the poultry project, aka the chick chain. When you're thinking about a project area in 4-H, you want to think about what's your goal. For me, my goal for you is that you learn about how chickens move from the egg to the table. And it's also important to me that you get involved in all the different parts of the poultry project. I want you to learn about embryology, so the life inside of an egg. I want you to learn about poultry judging. I want you to learn about how to grow and manage a small flock of chickens. And I'd also like you to learn about our chick chain barbecue program, or where we have outdoor meat cookery in the summer. There's lots of different ways you can get involved in your 4-H poultry project area. There's some words to know when you are studying poultry and when you're looking through your 4-H record book. Expenses are those things that cost you money, or anything that could have cost you money even if you got it for free. So say you go to the store today and you buy lots of feed. It costs you money. Let's say that your family loans you a cage. How much would that cost if you had to buy a small cage to bring your chickens home in? So even if you got it for free, it could still be considered an expense. Your receipts are anything you get money for. So if you sell your eggs, if you sell your birds, anything like that, you would write a receipt for it, just like you get in the store. That's where you earn that money. Pullets, which are what you are going to raise, are young hens under 1 year old. The words culled and culling mean you are getting rid of one of the birds, or you are getting rid of multiple of the birds. Maybe it's sick, maybe you want to get rid of it just to sell it, maybe you're going to eat it for meat. Anything like that could be considered culled or culling. Layers is a bird that is laying eggs. These are the birds that you're going to bring to the show. When you're picking out your best birds, you would like one that is ideally already laying eggs. There are 3 types of chickens that we get through our hatchery. We get white barred rocks, Rhode Island Reds, and black sexlings. Black sexlings are typically going to be the smallest birds that we see at the show, while the Rhode Island Reds are going to be the largest. And the barred rocks, if you wound up getting a rooster, it would be the largest, but their hens are still only about 6 pounds when they reach full size. Now, a number one question I get asked is, will I get any males or will I get any roosters? No, hopefully not. You don't need a rooster to lay eggs. But accidents do happen by our poultry company. Before the birds arrive, you should prepare a place free of draft and predators. You need to make sure you have enough space. By the end of the chick chain program, you're probably going to need about 60 square feet of space. You need to cover the floor with 3 inches of bedding. And you need to make sure that there's something to keep them warm. You want to make sure you turn it on tonight. If you haven't already, make sure the heat lamp works. Now, one question I also receive is, should I mix the chicks with the ones I already have? No, please don't. Chicks need more care in the beginning than anything else. Mixed breeds, so if you have Rhode Island Reds and barred rocks, you could result in a lower survival because when they look different, sometimes they'll attack each other. And you don't want a fight to break out. How much space is required for chicks that are 7 to 17 weeks? I believe it is 45 square feet. How much bedding is enough for the chicks prior to arrival? About 3 inches. For your heat source, you need to make sure you have a heat lamp with a 60 to 100 watt bulb, an infrared lamp with 250 watts, and the lamp should be 18 inches off the bedding. That is a little over a foot. The ideal temperature when your birds get there is to have their home at 90 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. For your heat source, if the chicks up underneath the heat source, they are too cold, so you need to lower the light. If the chicks stay away from the source, they are too hot, and you need to raise the light. Temperature should be reduced 5 degrees each week until week 5. Some food for thought. Should newspaper be used as bedding? Absolutely not. Newspaper should not be used for bedding because it can be slick, and you could result in sprayed legs. It could result in lots of injuries, and it could also cause some health issues. So other things we don't recommend are no cedar shavings. Peat moss can be a little bit too dusty, and pine shavings could be a solid choice. Other than that, other wood shavings are quality as long as they're not cedar shavings. How much temperature should be reduced each week? It should be reduced by 5 degrees each week. By the way, when you see this heat lamp here, you want to make sure that it is secure. It is child-proof or adult-proof if you're like me and clumsy. So you want to shake the heat lamp a little bit to make sure if somebody bumps in it, it's not going to just fall down on your birds. What is the desired temperature supplied by the heat source? The first week it should be at about 95 degrees. Your housing needs to have protection from the weather, predators, injury, and theft. You need to locate a building that is well drained. You want lots of water and electricity available, and you want to make sure the birds can be comfortable inside of it. The housing should be tight, so you don't want them to have too much space, but you also want to have little holes in it so that way they can breathe easy. Permanent or temporary housing could also be used, something you could take apart at the end of the chick chain. Now, when you look at this picture, I want you to tell me what is wrong with the picture. What is wrong with the housing? Look at how big the holes are in the housing, especially at the top. Birds, snakes, whatever can get in there and get to your chickens. Also, there's not enough space for the birds to take cover. That's not a big enough home for birds that are 15, that you're going to have 15 birds in there. Another thing you want to look at is the flooring. Look at there's no bedding on it. You need to make sure you have 3 inches of bedding on it. You want to also make sure it's dry. If you look at the bottom of that, it's a little bit muddy. Those are the holes I was talking about. You want to make sure those holes are very small. Birds can, or wild animals can come in underneath it or on top of it. So you want netting on the floor, on the top, everywhere around it. And you don't want those snakes to get in there. They're going to think that they are delicious. What's great about this housing? Look at this housing here. You know, it looks like some of the stuff they might have built out of things they had already at home. The holes are nice and small on the side. They have plenty of water and feed, space apart from it. It has great bedding on it. It looks like they have a place that's higher up off the ground for the birds to roost. Lots of great things about this housing. How do I protect my birds from predators? Placing your bird house off the ground on blocks around 1 feet can discourage different animals from living underneath it. You can keep holes in siding or keep holes nice and tight, so make sure that the holes don't expand or something like that. Sometimes our mesh might be stretchy from using it. You want to keep the siding free of holes. If you have wood or something, make sure that's covered up. Mesh holes should be smaller than 1 inch. And you need to make sure your fences are tall enough. Animals can jump. Give the animals places to hide. Feeding. You want to make sure you have different food for all the different occasions. About 70% of the cost of this project will be in feeding your chickens. 50 to 10 pound 10-pound bags are more costly to a farmer, so you want to make sure you buy in bulk. You don't want to buy a bunch of small 10-pound bags, although they are nice to carry. Sometimes some of our kids say they grab that small one first, that way they could refill it and have something easier to carry out there. Laying hens, when they get to about the 6 months age, they are going to eat about 1/4 pound of feed each day. Do not feed the birds scratch grain. It can cause them to pick at their feathers and can cause less egg production, as you see in the picture below. When you're feeding your birds, You want to make sure you have different feeds for different desires. There are about 4 different feeds that you might feed your bird during this chick chain project. You're going to pick up a starter at the co-op. You're going to get a feed for when they're growing a lot after the first month or 2. Then you want to get a finisher and one for when birds are laying eggs. There are different types for different birds as well. You have a pullet, a layer, or a broiler. So you guys are going to be raising pullets, and then there'll be layers after that. Birds need grit in their diet to help with digestion, so little rock and everything is good, or oyster shells is good for the birds. Chicks absorb the yolk, which provides the nutrients for the first 3 days. That's why you want to make sure you have food and sugar water when you come to pick up your birds. Feed consumption, what they eat, decreases if the temperature rises above 86 degrees Fahrenheit, so don't worry too much. Waters. Those are the things that your birds are going to drink from. You want to make sure that there's space in between them and you have nice clean waters. You want to make sure it has a cover on it of any sort. Waters can come in all shapes and sizes, but you want to make sure that they cannot tip over. A 5-gallon water will accommodate up to 75 hens. You know, those big 5-gallon buckets, sometimes people drill holes in the bottom of it, but you don't have to put a whole lot of water in it. But if you did fill it up to the top, you could help water about 75 birds. Like I said, waters come in all shapes and sizes, which is why I put that picture there so you can see another idea for one of your waters. You need to allow 2 to 3 inches of space between each drinker. Wet bedding can cause feed problems, and it can also provide climate for bacteria such as E. coli and salmonella. So you want to make sure the bedding stays dry and that it's not dripping all over the place. And ventilation is important for dry bedding. So if you have an airy spot, it should help the bed stay dry. Diseases can be possible when you're getting your birds. Birds can become infected with intestinal parasites, those that are inside, called coccidia. It is the most common cause of death in birds. Coccidiostat is typically added to the diets of chickens raised on the ground. This visceral Marek's disease is a tumor on the liver and other organs. It causes paralysis. Gray eye disease shrinks the iris and turns the bird's eyes gray, resulting in blindness. These are some internal diseases. External parasites should be checked for every week. So you need to look at the poop, make sure everything's going good all right there. But internal parasites are found in the digestive tract, it's in the respiratory tract where they breed. So you might not be able to see those unless you were to open up your bird. Internal parasites are contracted through eating insects which carry the worms, and the birds ingest the insect. It's natural that your birds might eat other bugs that are outside. However, it could lead to issues. For the eggs, you will not get these eggs until probably about 6 months is when they'll start laying, right when you're bringing them to the sale. Eggs are laid at the same temperature as the hen at 105 to 107 degrees Fahrenheit. An eggshell has about 8,000 pores. As the egg cools, air is pulled into the egg through those pores. So it's like little holes. Eggs should be collected each day to ensure cleaner eggs. Eggs should be dried prior to being placed in the refrigerator and stored at or below 45 degrees Fahrenheit. A rooster is not needed for egg production. Egg size increases when the chickens age. The hen will start to lay 18 to 22 weeks of age. The average hen lays 257 eggs per year. It takes about 23 to 25 hours for the hen to produce an egg. Production is best in the summertime. Now that you know some more about your chickens, you are going to take a look at your Overton County 4-H record book after you come to pick up your chickens. What I'll discuss here is how you can use it. You must turn it back in, and the information can also be collected in there about birds you already have. You want to make sure you keep this record book, this binder, in a safe place. On page 1, you're going to write the information you know, your name, your address, your school, your grade, everything like that. On the other pages, on page 2, you'll find some instructions for keeping track of your record book. On page 3, that's a checklist. You might want to put a Post-it note on this page, or you're going to take it out and put it on the fridge. Page 3 is going to tell you a little bit about what to expect as you go on in the chick chain. Page 4 is a reminder about when you get the birds, what to look for. Page 5, you're going to keep track of everything you buy or pay for. It's something that's called an expense. Every time you sell something, it's something that you receipt, and you're gaining money. You want to make sure you keep an envelope in your book to throw all the receipts or expenses in. Page 6. You're going to do this at the end. It will tell you a summary of all the things that you spent, so you could see how much the birds cost versus how much money you earned. Page 7 is where you're going to keep track of who died. Mortality. If a bird dies, you're going to keep track of it up on that top part. If you are calling, you're getting rid of it for whatever reason, you're going to keep track of that too. And depletion at the bottom is how many birds you lost overall and at the end. On page 8, you probably are not going to use this until July. It takes about 6 months for the birds to start laying. You're going to keep track of how many eggs you get each day. Each month you'll go through a different column. It's up and down on the page. Page 9 is how you're going to pick out your birds for the sale. It's going to be what you need to know, and it's going to also help you when you start to learn about poultry judging. Page 10, you're going to write your paragraph about what you learned and what you liked, or any other information on your blog. That's one very important part when you're turning in your record book, that page is filled out. On page 11, this is a great place to take pictures, print them, and put them in your book. Page 12, you need to make sure you take out your phone parents, and you must join the remind system to stay up to date. So if you haven't gotten text messages, this is what you're going to do to get text or emails about the Chick Chain project. Page 13 on up. This is a book that's going to explain what we talked about in this. It's also going to go into great detail more about your Chick Chain. It's a great way to keep track of all the information you learn, or if you have any questions, this should be your first source of information. Lastly, when should you contact me? Well, everyone should be signed up for the remind. I'm going to contact you through that first. You are supposed to get the text message before you receive the chickens. I also contact you 2 months before the show, and then I also contact you when we start our poultry judging. Any other poultry project information will be also sent through the remind system. If you do not hear from Miss Nicole or me from this remind system, please call the extension office to make sure you are getting those updates. For the poultry auction and sale, which is already on your binder on what day it's going to be, you want to make sure you arrive early. You want to make sure your birds are washed, and you need to make sure you are ready to weigh. No money is given out as a prize in the mail later on unless you follow the terms of the contract. I have a question, so I Googled. Okay. A lot of people sometimes have questions during the Chick Chain project, and maybe you are taught to go to Google to find out the information. Google can be your friend, but it's not always correct. That's why you have me, Nicole Marrero, or you have Jason Garrett in the extension office to help provide you with factual information. But if you must Google, only trust websites that end in .edu. Some other tips for success is take pictures frequently and email them to me. Keep track of everything in your record book. It's not even an option, so you should be keeping track of it anyways. Call or email me with questions. You can always schedule a farm visit so I can take some footage of your farm, and I can also tell you how to improve things. Now, one thing that sometimes happens is that your birds die. So, whether 3 birds die or all of them die, you need to call me. Call Miss Nicole. I repeat, contact Miss Nicole. You will not lose your deposit if you let me know ahead of time. If you hear someone else say all their birds died, tell them to contact Miss Nicole, and contact Miss Nicole yourself. Miss Nicole must notify you immediately of any of those deaths.